Today I want to tell you about this idea I had about a Pythonic semantic search, but let's start from the end. This is an example of a Pythonic semantic search. As you see, it's the front end of the Django admin, but here I performed a search using a word and having a result that are unrelated from the text point of view, but are connected based on the semantic or the context or the meaning of this word. And this is what we are going to see together in this talk. But before going ahead, I want to say a bit of me and why I'm talking about these topics. So I'm Paolo Melchiorre, and I'm, as I already said, I'm board member of the Django Software Foundation. I also part of the Python community, a fellow of the Python Software Foundation, and I participate in different initiatives like Django Girl, which I organized. The Django Now Space is a new program that we had in the Django community, but I also part of the organization for PyCon Italia, and I invite you to join next year. And I founded also a local meetup in my hometown, Python Pescara, where we try to share Python topics and other talks. But coming back to the title of this talk, the Pythonic word for me is something that we can find in the Zen of Python. The principle that I like the most is the third one: simple is better than complex. I like finding simpler version to problem, and not every time is so easy to find them. Speaking on the web framework in the Python universe, I think, speaking of simplicity, a lot of you may think about some framework like, for example, Flask, which is a very good piece of Python web framework, and it worked very well. It's very simple because what we saw together in the quick start is very short and straightforward. We import Flask, initialize it, and we define a root and a function that returns a small piece of HTML. And for a long time, has been said that Django is not easy or simple like that, but thanks to an experiment of Will Vincent that is here in EuroPython, he created a repository when we aggregated some example of simple version of Django project. This is a very small Django project that can run only in one file. So exactly as we saw before for Flask. Maybe you have to import more things, but at the end you have a function that returns the same piece of HTML code, and it works running from only this file, and with the same result. But nowadays we don't deliver a lot of HTML, more JSON and API, and so speaking of fast and simplicity, we can talk about Fast API. The documentation, the tutorial is very similar to the Flask one. There is a very small example of importing Fast API, initializing a variable, and using a decorator returning in an asynchronous way a small piece of JSON. But I tried to do something similar. I invented this small experimental project. The name is Micro Django, and I did a very similar things as before, maybe with some import more than Fast API, but with the same asynchronous and the same response. Only to say that I'm using Django for this example. You can use also this other very good framework. I'm not a person that are jealous of the framework, but I only want to share with you that simplicity and solution are not connected necessarily to the framework you are using. And so let's go ahead and talk a bit more about Django if you don't know. The key point here is the fact that this year we are celebrating 20 years of Django. It can be a very intimidating number of years, but in this year it evolved a lot, and we have used it since the beginning to do a lot of things, and we added support for a lot of interesting piece of code. For example, also the HSGI support, which is something that has been developed inside the Django community. So to implement what we saw at the beginning, let's create together a small example of project. As for every project, we check the stable version of Python, and we create a virtual environment, and then we simply install Django in this way. Django itself helps us to have a proper project, and instead of having only one small file, as I show you, it creates for us small files in the project to develop locally the project, or also to deploy it remotely. And so we create with the start project command a semantic search project, and inside of it we are going to create an application to store the model that we are using for performing some searches on it, and we named the app items. The only things we need to activate this new app is to add the name and the list of the installed app of the project we just created. And then we can go directly to create a new model. This code I'm showing you is only for example purpose. It works, so you can copy and paste from the slide when I share you at the end of the talk, and it will work. But maybe for space reason, I used a very peculiar semantic. I'm defining here an item with text content, and also had some other field, for example, the prices using an integer, and a Boolean field to see if there is stock of this item or not. I also use some attributes that are new in the Django 5 version, that is the default for the database, which is something that was added in the last version of Django. And it can be useful when you create a table in your database where you interact also from other framework, or you interact directly, because it creates for you a default. And the last thing we did is to define a string representation using simply the content, which is the text field here. We can see what under the hood happens, but before that we are going to create a migration. The migration in Django are the way you define the changes for the database, and are defined in some Python files. But for new models, new changes, Django creates for you this file. We can apply this migration, but also we can ask Django to show us the code, the SQL code that he perform run on the database. In fact, we can see here that running the migration, we create a new table with a primary key that is a default, and also with the field we defined before, and you see that there is also default for price and in stock field. And now that we created, we want to interact a bit with these models. And here I'm sharing the command to enter the Django shell, the manage shell one. In the latest version of Django, we added the possibility to import automatically all the relevant models for you. So you have not to install Django extension or to import manually all the models. It's only something that has been added recently And in fact, we can start using the model, the item model directly. And the first thing we do is to bulk create 2 items, so we have some data to perform some search on it. And the second thing we do is to perform a filter query using values for all the 3 fields we define in our items. So the content, the price, and in the stock. And using these parameters, we have in a query results all of 2 items we defined. We can also, in this case, can go deeper and ask to see the query that has been performed to have these results. And we can format a bit using SQL parse, which is one of the 2 default requirements when you install Django. And this is the result, is a simple select in SQL. In this case, since we are not to find any other database, the project are going to use a SQLite. This is very straightforward. It search in all the column of the table we're using this parameter. And now that we have some items and some instance, we can also switch and interact easier with the data using the Django admin. And it's easy to define a new item admin class. And in this case, we are going to use all the default attribute you can use to see that, to say to Django that we want to filter on some field, what we want to search in the content, for example. And also we want to use the faceted search, which is something also new in Django 5. And it can allow us to use the filter in the interface. To interact with the Django admin, you need only to create, if you're running it locally, a new user, and to run the server for development purpose. And this is the interface that Django creates for us. So we are going to add more than one of these items using the text fields and all the other fields in it. So I spent 2 minutes on this task, and I added more than one content using connected words and different prices and in stock field. And now we already have the filter on the side and the search on top, but also we can order using the column. And in this case, I searched for a word. I used all the filter on the side. You can see the faceted and the parentheses, and also ordered everything using the context column. And under the hood, since maybe we installed also Django debug toolbar, we can see the executed SQL code that has been performed on the SQLite database to have this result. But at this point, we want to do something more, since we want to create a semantic search. The next step is, of course, using something that we like. In this case, it's PsychoPG, which is the Python driver for Postgres. This is the image you can find in the account of the PsychoPG project, which is quite old and has been starting using Django since a long time, but also as Django in the last year have been evolved a lot, and now it's in the 3rd version of its implementation. To use it in our project, since we already had a virtual environment, we can install it, in this case the binary version, which is the easiest if you have to develop something. And only we are going to add some information in the settings to connect with your instance. It can be locally in your Docker image or somewhere else. And since we switched from one database to another, we are going to migrate again and to apply again, all the creation of the table for this new instance of the database. As before, we also have to create some values using the bulk create, and if we perform the same, it contains lookup using the same word, we have the same results. In this case, I use the rock, as a result, rocket and rock. But if I want to search for a plural form, I see that using the basic lookup, I don't have any results. But since we installed PsychoPG, we are using Postgres, we can activate the model specific for Postgres that is inside the Django code, and we can start using something different, which is quite closer to what we want as a semantic search. In this case, we are using a full text search, which is based on some type of vectors, but not the one we are going to see. And the same search with a plural form of the word are giving us, as a result, the singular form of it. The code that is performed is a bit different from before, and we can see that the content is at runtime converted to a TS vector, and also the query terms are converted to a TS query. This is something specific for Postgres. We can also speed up this query, creating something that is new in Django 5, the generated field. Are columns that are being generated from, populated from the database for you. And in this case, we are converting every time we modify a row in this table, when we modify the content, the database are updating this vector field for us. So we don't have to create it at runtime, and it performed the full text search faster. Since we added a new vector, we are going to create a migration to apply it, and we can also see under the hood that we are adding a new column of the type we defined, the TS vector, but it is generated for us from the database. We don't have to update or run some cron to update it in the future. And the search in this new vector is quite simple, and it returns to us the same results as before. So searching for a plural or a different form, we can have the results. And under the hood, the SQL code is easier than before because we already stored the vector in the field. Okay, now that we have reached the limit of what we can do internally using Django, and we saw different type of search, we want to go ahead and do something different. As I promised at the beginning, we are going to implement a semantic search, which searching online, for example, in Wikipedia, it's clear that it's something connected more to the context of the meaning of the term, more than connected to the dictionary of the character in the words. We can perform semantic search on different type of data, and what happens usually is that this type of data that can be text or different type, picture or other, using some embedding model are converted to embedding vectors that usually are list of number, to put it simple. And to see something visually, we can think about in 3 dimensions. For example, in this case, we have some words, and the embeddings for this word correspond to triplets of number, and these triplets can be the different axes in the space. We can see that some words are closer to other and are placed in the space in different parts. These are only examples, but it helps us to understand what happens. In reality, we store these vectors in different type of vector database, and they use more than 3 dimension, usually 500 or more. But using external vector database can be useful in some certain cases or not. The pros of using this database is that they are very popular and you can find a lot of resources online, but the cons is that you have to synchronize or use the driver to interact. Speaking of an interaction on web, usually a user performs a query and want to see some information about database, in this case items, but if we have all the vector embedding stored in a different database, we have to synchronize them and perform the query there, and this can give us some issue. So we are going to use the same database we are using before, which is Postgres, and in fact, we can install pgvector, which helps us to store directly the embeddings vector directly in Postgres. To do that, we are going to create an empty migration because the only things we have to do is to activate this extension. In this case, I created an empty file for a migration, and I put on it, using the pgvector module, the vector extension activation. And under the hood, when we created the migration file and we see what happened, it only created extension if not exists already. And now that we have this pgvector extension, we can create another field that is a vector field. In this case, as you can see, we are using more than 500 dimension, and also in this case is not editable. Same things as before, creating a migration and see what happened inside when we apply it. It's very similar. It creates for us a column of the type vector and not nullable. Now we have to store information on this vector. We are going to use sentence transformer. You can install directly on your virtual environments. I cut a bit the log because it installs a lot of dependencies, but it's enough for our example. And importing a sentence transformer from the module, we can also choose to use, in this case, a model which is multilingual, because I do some experiment also in Italian or other languages. And using the transformer, we can customize the save model and put some information starting from the content. So we have a text. We use the transformer to convert it in the embedding vectors, and we store it in the embedding field. And now we can, at the end, create a search class method where we perform a cosine distance between all these vector we created, and transforming the query code that we pass to this method. And the final filter here is using this distance that has been calculated to see which are the most closer terms in our database. The search is very straightforward, and under the hood, it performs a new type of query. I cut here all the list of number in the SQL code, and the final step to have the results we had is to customize the search in the admin to use the class method, the search class method. And finally, you're back to the beginning. So putting a word, in this case guitar, we are having back some other words that are different, but they are connected based on the meaning or the context. And this is thanks to the sentence transformer that converted all this information, this content, in some embeddings. A bit late, you can at the end see this, share these slides if you liked, and you can find it on my website, and you can scan the QR code if you to be connected and to find some other example of this or get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the talk, Paolo. And let's have a big round of applause for our speaker.
Thank you.
We have a few minutes for questions. If any questions are in the room, we have 2 microphones where you could get up. And if people decide to get up and do a question while we wait for that, let's ask Paolo where we can find you on the conference if somebody has questions about Django.
Yeah, we have a booth and in this floor with the Django Software Foundation. So a booth we are talking about the project, and also we have Friday morning at 10 we have a birthday moment to celebrate 20 years of the project. So you can join. We'll have a cake. We celebrate together.
Thanks. I see no immediate questions, so now that you know where to find Paolo, you can just go there and ask questions in person. So let's have another big round of applause for our speaker. Thank you very much.
Before you go away, I take a picture of all of you also with Mark.
Yeah. Can you all wave for the selfie? Thank you. Okay. We will do another 10-minute break, and then the talks in